Well, it's so good to be with you, Westgate. For those of you that are visiting, I was a pastor here for 10 years, up until 3 months ago, and then I got fired. No, I'm just joking. No, God asked us to do something kind of crazy. So 6 years ago, my wife and I, we were just praying one night and had one of those kind of encounter moments with God. And he said, I want to give you guys a property to take care of pastors. And this property is going to have a view, it's going to have acreage, and if it costs a penny, it's the wrong place. And if I'm being honest, I had enough faith to write it down, but that was it. Because that seems too good to be true. And so over the years, it kind of morphed into more, maybe God will give us a house on an acre, we'll take care of pastors that way. But fast forward 6 years, and we've gotten in contact with a YWAM base in Discovery Bay, Washington, and it has a view, it has 15 acres, and they're just giving it to us. Isn't that amazing? So we have an overhead shot of the property that sits up on a bluff. It's just been amazing. What's really cool is it has 25, probably a little bit more, mature fruit trees. So it has, I think, 12 cherry trees, 6 apple trees, the best plums you'll ever eat. And so here's a picture of my kids living their best life. We're Southern, so we live on the porch. So we're going back to our roots a little bit. But I wish I would have gotten a picture of Macy, because she would keep disappearing. Because there's so much fruit, it's all on the ground. And so she would keep disappearing. Where's Macy? She's getting more fruit. And I wish I would have got a picture. She had an apple and 2 plums, and she was eating it like corn. Just going back and like living her best life. She's made for property. So it's been great. But it's not been without some struggles. Because we're actually, the only place that can fit our family on the property is a double wide trailer that's 60 years old. 60 years old. And so you know what? I've never done a home renovation project before, right? And so I've never owned a house before. So I'm like, well, let's throw up some paint. We'll do new floors. We'll be in there in 2 weeks. I laugh at myself 3 months ago. Because when we took up the old flooring, we found mold in the subfloor. And when we took up the subfloor, we could see dirt outside. I don't think that's supposed to happen that way. There's one layer of subfloor between us and being outside. And so it is just one thing after another. And I have to give a huge shout out to the Westgate disaster chaplains. They took one look at us and saw what a disaster we were and took pity on us and then came and worked their tails off. So Tony and Cheryl Harding, Greg and Val Carlson, John Taquinto, John Ahern, we were just so grateful. They just worked so hard. And chaplaincy, if you can, do it, right? Hands and feet of Jesus to the people that need it, and we needed it in that moment. So we're so grateful. And there are many others that have come out and spent the day working, and we couldn't have done this without you, Westgate. So thank you for being such a good sending, supporting community. I did think when they asked me to preach, I'd be coming back. I didn't realize I would just be walking down the road still. I didn't realize I'd still be here, but it is good to be here. It's good to be here. This morning, I want to talk about discipleship. Such an important thing to our Christian faith. How do we be practically a disciple of Jesus? And I love that there are so many movements. We've seen them all everywhere, right? Where these springs of new believers are coming in, right? I love that. It's not going to mean much if we don't disciple them. It's not going to mean much unless we disciple them. So we need to understand as a church what it means to disciple people, disciple them like Jesus. And I'm thankful because I think Matthew, what we're going to be reading today, does a great job of showing us how to practically be a disciple of Jesus. The yeses and the nos, the ways that we do it. And so we're going to be looking at Matthew 8:18. But the context of this is Jesus, at the beginning of chapter 8, is just coming down the mountain after preaching his famous Sermon on the Mount. So he spent significant time up on this mountain just preaching one of his best sermons, right? He's saying so much about life, how to live life with God. A lot of people, right? People say he preaches with authority and power. And so chapter 8 starts with him descending down the mountain. And he starts just healing everyone. So first a leper comes, and he famously touches the leper before he heals him. Right? And then the centurion comes, and he says, Lord, just give us the word, and my servant will be healed. The servant's healed. Then he finally makes his way into Peter's mother-in-law's house. She's sick in bed. He touches her hand. She's healed. So people are just bringing crowds of their family and friends and are getting healed. That's what it says. Tons of people with demons getting cast out and being healed of physical affliction. I feel like I'm aging myself, and I hate that I'm old enough to say I think I'm aging myself. But does anyone remember that play production, Jesus Christ Superstar? For some of you youngins, that's a real name of a play. I went and saw that with my parents, and I'll never forget. Jesus was coming in for his triumphal entry, and he was riding a real donkey. He was in Branson, Missouri. He had Ray-Bans on, and he was finger gunning the crowd, like, what's up, what's up, what's up? That's kind of how I see him coming down this mountain. You're healed, you're healed, you're healed, you're healed. That kind of energy, right? You're healed, you're healed. He's just healing everyone. And so that's where we get to this part of our story we're going to look at today, 8:18. Matthew was saying that he was teaching with authority, teaching with power. He comes down the mountain, he's acting, he's backing it up in authority and power. So Matthew's saying he's not just teaching something great, he lives it. And so now we get to the point where Jesus is saying, do you want to be my disciple? So Matthew 8:18, when Jesus saw the crowd around him, he gave orders to cross to the other side of the lake. Then a teacher of the law came to him and said, Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus replied, Foxes have dens, birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. There's a couple interesting things happening here. For one, Jesus is leaving the crowd. That hits us weird, doesn't it? We're taught if we've done something to grow a crowd, build a building, name it a movement, give it a hashtag. Jesus is leaving the crowd. And actually, in verse 5, when he goes up the mountain, the very reason he's going up the mountain is to leave another crowd. Now, when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him and began to teach, and he began to teach them. All over Matthew, Jesus is leaving crowds. That could be its own sermon because of how that hits us. We don't even really know what to do with that. That's so backwards to everything I think we've been taught. And something else that's interesting is the teacher. Do you notice what he calls Jesus? If you want to know what a person thinks about Jesus, pay attention to what they call him. He says, teacher, not Lord. All of the healings prior, Lord, if you're willing. Because Lord has divinity attached to it. Teacher is, I like what you're saying. I like the finger gun pointing. I love all the healing. This is amazing. I just want to follow you everywhere you go. The teacher loved the certainty of Jesus coming down the mountain. He loved the comfort, the control he felt like he got. So that's exactly why Jesus says, you don't get any of that if you want to follow me. The Son of Man doesn't know where he's going to rest his head. There's no certainty promised. So he gives them a really, really intense challenge. Another disciple comes in verse 21. Lord, first let me go bury my father. But Jesus told him, follow me and let the dead bury the dead. What? Like what? Aren't we supposed to take care of our families? Doesn't Jesus tell us to take care of our families? And this is like religious custom. Why would Jesus say this to him? Jesus knew he had a good reason, but that there was something else under there. He wanted to be in control. Good reason. There's a broken part of his heart. He wanted to be in control of his discipleship process, not how it works if you want to be a disciple of Jesus. So then, Jesus gets in the boat, verse 23. Then he got into the boat, and his disciples followed him. There's a couple things you need to know about the disciples that followed him into the boat. Jesus is not asking them to take an easy ride. The Sea of Galilee, even to this day, it's called Lake Tiberias now, is famously suddenly violent with storms. There are only a few places to this day you're allowed to swim there because storms can happen so suddenly, you could be in danger. So the Sea of Galilee is famous for being dangerous. And Jesus said, hey, get in the boat. And not only that, the boat they get in, they discovered actually a fishing boat from Jesus' day a couple years ago. That's not going to handle very big waves. That is not a naval vessel. So Jesus is asking them to do something very dangerous with very little resources. And then on top of that, Mark, we learn, they are leaving at night. So what little maybe understanding they'd have of a storm coming, they have no. They can't see very far. They're in a completely surrendered, helpless situation. And wouldn't you know it, a storm happened. Verse 24, suddenly a furious storm came on the lake, so that the waves swept over the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him up, saying, Lord, save us, we're going to drown. He replied, you of little faith, why are you so afraid? Then he got up, rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm. The men were amazed and asked, what kind of man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey. I can kind of like relate to that energy of Jesus being annoyed that he was woken up. He was like, you know what? Oh my gosh, wind, stop, please. Can I sleep? I have kids, so that's why. Right? There's kind of a harsh response here again. This is the third harsh response now. This isn't the same Jesus, or it doesn't seem like the same Jesus that was coming down the mountain healing everyone. This is a harsh, challenging Jesus. Why? How can a good God knowingly lead his disciples into this place, into this problem, into this crisis? Well, he was doing it purposely because he was revealing something that was deep in them. What was revealed in the shaking? What was revealed in the disciples? Fear. So that's how he's good. He was taking them into something that was shaking them up to reveal something so that he could heal it. You see, there's things that we go through in life that sink to the very bottom of our lives. We don't know they're there, but they poison every relationship, every situation. And Jesus can't just touch the surface to get to them. He's got to shake us up. And if you don't believe me, look at the word Matthew used to talk about this storm. Usually when talking about this storm, he would use a Greek word, lilaps, which means whirlwind. That's how it's common in that time to talk about that storm. He uses seismos, seismic activity, a shaking, an unearthing. He's saying there's an internal reality happening right now. This isn't just about this external storm. Jesus is trying to get at something internally in the disciples. See, Jesus knew that things settle in our hearts. He knew that they would go down to the depths. And that's where he wants to go to heal us. What happens if you throw this on top of some soil? It actually kind of poisons the soil. It makes the soil smelly, unusable. You see, we're gonna walk through things in life that are spoiled. Things that have been spoiled in us, rot. We're gonna walk through things where we have to deal with those things. I have to heal from those things. The spoil. I think the enemy, one of his greatest goals is to spoil every good thing in us or that we experience. We're gonna walk through spoiled things. But if we leave them undealt with, the spoil spreads. Now, what happens if you put this in soil and you turn it regularly? It becomes compost. Compost is thriving soil. So I need everyone to listen to me. I need everyone's attention. The very thing that the enemy has used to spoil your life, the very thing, he wants to use to save it. The very thing, the worst things you've walked through, the worst things you've experienced, with Jesus' power and authority can come the very place where flourishing happens. You hearing that this morning? That's the power Jesus has. It's just up to us to say yes to the stirring. It's up to us to say yes to getting in the boat. It's human nature. We see it with Adam and Eve. What's the first thing they do when they sin? They cover up and they blame. They cover up, they put the fig leaves on, and then they blame. We do that. Just pours more soil on the spoil. I just need a new job promotion. I just need the new iPhone. Anything to escape the spoil in my life. Oh, and those people over there, they stink. They're so bad for X, Y, and Z. And Jesus is saying, I just want to deal with the spoil in your heart. I want to deal with the spoil in your heart. And so we've got to confront the things that have sunk down below because they bleed into everything we do if we leave them undealt with. And here's another part of God's genius wisdom. He has built into our lives right now, right here, the very shaking we need to heal. Who in your life is shaking you up right now? What situation feels overwhelming? What person is really hard for you to love? What family member is really annoying you right now? Who are your whiskers? I got 3 little ones at home. Got one sitting on the front row. Right? I have been able to sit under some of the best Pentecostal theologians around. But I tell people all the time, the people who have discipled me the most are my kids. They have a God-given talent to show me where I'm impatient. They know where to find my edge of patience. They're great at showing me the things I want to control, but I have no control over. God has built that into my life. Do you see how it stirs you up? So many of you may not know this. My mom was pregnant with another son when I was about 3 years old. And she lost him in pregnancy, about eight months of pregnancy. I was 3, I don't remember it. And they said they came home and told me, and I just wept. But I have no memory of it. And I haven't honestly thought about it much since then. Until my two oldest kids started getting to the age where they developed a really special relationship. And I started getting waves of grief of what I was missing out on. And thankfully, by then, I knew to say yes to the stirring. right? I said, okay, God, this is, I tell people when you're feeling they're not negative emotions, but they're the emotions we avoid. It's like throwing up. It stinks for a while, but it feels great after, right? You're glad you did it. And so I just was like, okay, I want to say yes to this process. God's saying something. He's stirring something up in me here. And so as I started saying yes, God started to reveal something that had sunken so deep in me. And it was this: I believed as little 3-year-old Evan that I had to overcompensate for this loss. Now think about how I can look back and see how that lie was devastating for much of my life, because it drove my perfectionism. I was tirelessly working to be good all the time because I felt like it was my job to overcompensate. Do you see the invisible impact of that lie? So God in his grace brought it to the surface and he said, Evan, I just needed you to be your 3-year-old self. So before, he brought this to my attention after I started preaching. When I would preach, I would sit on the front row after I was done, and my inner critic would tear me to pieces. After that, I can sit down on that front row and just go, God, I don't need to be anything other than just what I am. I can do my best, and I can rest in that. I call it resting in my best. You see me sitting down on the front row, that's what I'm practicing after the sermon. I'm resting in my best. That's all he's asking from me. Do you see the lie? Do you see how it was stirred up? And do you see the freedom he brought through it? Another more recent one. We had just finished our first week of renovation at the property. It's probably one of the hardest weeks of my life, and that is not exaggeration. It's just brutal. Working long hours, doing things we didn't expect we'd be doing, right? And we come back, and Laura and her mom went back up to paint a little bit, and I was with the kids, and I was just exhausted. I'm so tired. And I get this call from someone, and they said, I want to know about your ministry, Well of Hope. And I was like, okay, great. I have no idea how he got my number. And then he started interrogating me. Do you have a board? Are you a nonprofit? And this was going after me. I was like, whoa. And then I said, why do you care? Like, where's this coming from? And he goes, well, I want to send my pastor. And I thought, oh gosh, I got to be nice to this guy, But that was a lie. That was a lie. Because he was calling to really get intel on us. And the only reason I know that is Laura was up at the property and overheard a church who was there, finding out that we were taking over, and they weren't happy about it. So that whole exchange happens. But I was so exhausted. I was so out of it. I don't know where this lie came from. But it was, I've just jeopardized this promise. Because I think he said he was like a real estate agent or something. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's going to find a loophole. And I've just jeopardized this. So I went back inside. Luckily, I only had one piece of bread left of peanut butter for my kids. I gave it to them. And can I be honest? It's the closest I've ever come to a panic attack. I went into our hallway, grabbed my knees, and just tried to breathe. I didn't feel like the boat was going under. I felt 20 feet under already in that moment. But I knew I have to say yes. Jesus is with me. I've got to say yes to the stirring here. So the next 6 hours, I wish I could say it was that instant. It wasn't. The next 6 hours felt like the throw-up phase, right? But then, in that 6th hour, what did Jesus reveal? Somewhere along in my life, there was a lie that settled down deep that I associated any type of hardship or pain with God's absence. That anytime I went through something hard, that meant God wasn't near me. And I've walked through some hard stuff. Looking back, that made it doubly, triply as hard. Because it was like, God, where are you? Why am I going through this? I'm only going through this because you're not with me. But that's a lie. So again, stirring, lie revealed, healing. Now, when I go through something painful, this process has been painful, but I don't have that extra weight of going, God, where are you? It's now, God, this is painful, and I know you're with me. I know I can handle this because I'm in your hands. The guy's name was Cal. I would hug him if I saw him. If I ever meet him, I'm going to hug him. I don't care what his intentions were. God used him as an instrument of my deep healing. We don't have to be afraid of the stirring, Westgate. Whatever trial, whatever enemy, whatever thing's annoying you, we don't have to be afraid. He wants to use it to get at the spoil in our lives, to purify our waters, to be that overflowing well we sang about this morning. My guess is the disciples, since many of them were fishermen, and the Sea of Galilee has such a notorious reputation, that wasn't the first time they were afraid they were going to lose their lives on that sea. That wasn't the first time they'd experienced the trauma of being in touch with their fragility, their death. And Jesus took them back to that very spot. Why? Because he knew something then that we're just finding out now. There is mounting psychology research that our brains are not the only thing that keep memory. Our bodies have memory. Our bodies have memory. You ever touch something hot? It burns you. What is your body's reaction anytime you're by that thing again? Your body has memory. The disciples had already given mental assent to be in the boat. Their brains had already said yes to Jesus, but their bodies, their nervous systems were still out of alignment with his truth. That is how deep Jesus wants to get his gospel. The deepest parts of your heart. He wants your bodies to know. He wants his word to be alive in your body. Not just here, not just good teaching. But the only way he can do that is by taking you on the boat, taking you through things that scare you, taking you back to the places that have harmed you. And this is something else that Jesus knew. The way you heal from these situations is you go through similar situations, right? PTSD is this traumatic thing, and if it's left undealt with, anything that's similar triggers you. So like a soldier who's been in really intense battle has a really hard time on the 4th of July. Similar sounds, similar smells, completely safe, but his body is reacting like he's not. Do you know how you heal from that? You go through similar circumstances with new relational resources. Study after study after study after study is showing the way you heal from that is you go back through those moments with new relational resources. Jesus took the disciples back to the very place of their trauma, the very place of crisis, with a new relational resource, himself. Jesus wants our whole beings to understand the depths of his love for us. He wants to get at what's spoiling our lives invisibly. He wants to deal with the invisible impact of all the wounds, of all the spoil you've had to endure and walk through. He wants you to live free, but you gotta say yes to the stirring. You've gotta say yes to getting in the boat. You've gotta yes to say to the seismos shaking. Because we've spent our lives burying it, putting more soil on it. And it's only in the shaking that stuff gets exposed. Matthew is saying And all of these stories, Jesus has the authority and power to teach. He has the authority and power to heal. He has the authority and power over creation. Will you trust him with your heart? I think it's easier for us to trust him to calm the storms of creation than it is to trust him to calm the storms of our hearts. We're too broken. We've done too much. What is that? A lie. There's no place he cannot reach down, touch, and heal. He has the power and authority to do that. Matthew is showing us that. But you have to say yes. You have to be a willing person to get into the ship. You've got to confront the spoil. And he'll do the rest. He'll stir it. And he'll turn your spoiled garden into the most vibrant garden. You actually can't even believe how much he can bring from your spoiled garden. But trust him. Believe him. Get in the boat with him. That's what I think Matthew's saying about disciples. Jesus had a lot of followers. The Pharisees followed him. People wanted some meals, free meals. Anyone can be a follower of Jesus. Disciples get in the boat. Disciples let him stir things up. Now, I don't want it to seem like your life will always be this non-stop shaking. They just were coming off a mountaintop experience, okay? But if you say yes to the boat, I will say he'll take you to higher mountains. Peter said yes to the boat, and he ended up there on the Mount of Transfiguration. Your mountains will be higher because you've let Jesus take you to the depths. So this morning as we close, I just want to leave you with this. The very water that Peter thought was going to kill him was the water he was walking on 3 chapters later. The very water he was afraid of, he was walking on 3 chapters later. Aren't you ready, Westgate, to stop the spoil from ruining your lives? Aren't you ready for Jesus to get that deep in you? Aren't you ready to walk on it, walk over it, overcome it? That's the invitation that's in your life right now. There are people and places and situations that Jesus is saying, let me stir this up. Let me use this so that I can heal you, so that you can walk free. We got to say yes to the boat. We got to say yes to the shaking and the stirring if we want to be disciples. As we close this morning, we're just going to invite the Spirit to speak to us because right there, the body holds the unconscious memories. How do we know what's not there or what is there if we don't know what's there, right? So we need the Spirit's help. So we're going to pray over some questions this morning. We'll have a graph up, a picture up. What's keeping you from getting in the boat? Is it comfort? Control? What's keeping you from getting in the boat? What's keeping you on shore? What are the things and the people and the places and situations God is trying to stir you up with? You know, it's a genius thing that he includes this in families. That's why we gather as a community. All our idiosyncrasies, God wants to use to heal us, that we get annoyed with, that we have to rub shoulders with people. God just wants you healed. What are the things he's using to stir up your heart? And then what is he trying to reveal so he can heal? What are the things that have laid dormant in us for so many years, that have affected us in so many ways, and yet are invisible to us? What are the lies we've believed? I've got to be good enough. I've got to be perfect. I've got to accomplish everything in order to be loved. What are the lies we've believed? The lies we've internalized that are poisoning our waters, that are weighing us down. So Spirit, I just pray right now, in your amazing way, and only the way you can, reveal to us the spoil in our lives. Reveal to us the rot. And you don't come in as a judge, you come in as a servant, compassionate Savior, to touch those parts of us. Give us the courage to uncover them for you, to stop blaming other people. Would you reach your hand down? And we want to be free. The people on the shore don't get the love and the joy and the peace that one gets when you get in the boat with Jesus. It gets spoiled for them. So Jesus, I just pray now, your Spirit, come, reveal. Tenderly, graciously go to those places in our hearts so that we can be healed and restored.